And there we have both of our players already on stage. And yeah, they're pretty familiar with being on the big stage here, both of them looking calm, knowing what they wanted to do probably, since they had a whole night to prepare just for this match. Of course, this is a very special occasion where we're playing the Swiss rounds on the first day and then the top cut on the second day of competition. But then for Championship Sunday, all the finals, both in the video game and the card game, are being played back to back. So yeah, you have a little bit of time to make some adjustments, make some plans, and actually both of these players have already faced in the Swiss rounds. There it was Javier who came out on top and was the only player that James lost to. So yeah, maybe it's time for some revenge there.
There's a lot of information that's been traded back and forth. Javier has been on stream a couple of times now. Same with James. And the fact that they played against each other before, they understand what this matchup is supposed to look like. So having 2 more days to practice, having a couple more moments with their friends, with their support system to really feel out this match and maybe get that revenge factor there. This is going to be a different game for both of these players.
Definitely. And after talking a little bit about James, let's also have a little look at Javier's team, because he is bringing one of the fan favorite Pokemon here to this finals. He is going to use a Togedemaru. Now, we have seen it a little bit on stream yesterday, where it was trying to even go for the Z move, was doing a little bit of damage here and there, and in the end helped Javier to win his semifinals match. So yeah, it's gonna be interesting seeing as to whether he decides that Togedemaru is a Pokemon he wants to bring in this matchup.
Well, I think I have my eyes on a different Pokemon as a part of Javier's lineup. If you were tuning in yesterday, you might have noticed that there is a Mandibuzz in Javier's team.
Yeah, Mandibuzz, another one of those Pokemon. He was comparing it a lot to Yveltal, which is a restricted Pokemon, so you can only use 2 of them. So he had already decided that he wanted to use Lunala and Rayquaza, though. So he said that he decided to use a Pokemon that shares the same typing as Yveltal, Mandibuzz also being a dark and flying type, having a good matchup against Groudon's ground type attacks, for example, and then also some of the other Pokemon that we see so commonly, like Lunala and Ultra Necrozma.
There's something very specific about that Mandibuzz that catches my attention, though. Mandibuzz is a Pokemon that usually plays a support role within a team composition, but this time and yesterday, we actually saw Mandibuzz dishing out huge amounts of damage, taking out both of James's restricted Pokemon.
Yeah, with Foul Play, as that is an attack that uses your opponent's strength against them, that is one way to really do a lot of damage to some of these strong Pokemon that we now see here on James' side. There you can see the full 6 Pokemon that he's going to bring to the table. We don't need to talk about this guy. He has been around for a while now, and he has been doing great at basically any tournament he enters.
You can just see it right there. We don't have to say a thing, because I think this player card says it all for James's history in the 2019 season, and he's really looking to repeat the successes in this next format.
Yeah, and he also has one of those Pokemon that we do not see that often with that Excelgor. So we have talked about this combination a little bit. Excelgor with that Psychic Seed that activates once Tapu Lele's Psychic Surge creates the Psychic Terrain. It will boost its special defense and then also activate Unburden, the ability of Excelgor, which doubles its speed. And Excelgor already being such a fast Pokemon, with Unburden activated, we saw it yesterday, even outspeeding a Tapu Lele equipped with a Choice Scarf. It would have outspeeded that Jumpluff even under the sun when Chlorophyll was active. So yeah, Excelgor really a very, very fast Pokemon. It has played a little bit of a role in the semifinals, but it wasn't that important for his success. I think James was more relying on his Primal Groudon and his Ultra Necrozma there, but maybe we could see that Excelgor claim a title for the first time.
What's interesting about the Excelgor too is that you can use your opponent's Tapu Lele in order to set up that Psychic Seed, right? But Javier is not running a Tapu Lele. We saw James take advantage of that in a previous match during the top 8, but this time, if James wants to run that Excelgor, he's going to have to use his own Tapu Lele. But now you can see there on Javier's player card, there is that Mandibuzz that we've been talking about.
Definitely. Mandibuzz, really good against that Ultra Necrozma. In fact, Ultra Necrozma really lacks any way of doing any damage against Mandibuzz at all, as both of Psychic type attacks that it uses frequently and that Earth Power that it always carries to have some coverage against Primal Groudon, both of them are ineffective against a Mandibuzz. And then also, when looking at this team, I think it's pretty fitting, by the way, for like a finals match here, the end of the season, where a lot of the strategies have already been figured out, and some players were already saying like, oh, there's so many teams that are set in stone. Now, two players that are bringing something creative to the table, made it to the finals, just really goes to show that you have to bring your own team, as we see the handshake between these two amazing players. You have to bring your own team and really try to surprise your opponents, play to your own strengths, and that is exactly what both of these players have been doing this tournament.
The fun part about Pokemon is that you can kind of be a couple steps ahead, and maybe sometimes putting yourself a couple steps ahead is bringing that surprise factor, like the Mandibuzz, like the Excelgor, and just like that, James is already locked in to their game plan for Game 1.
Yeah, that is what a night of preparation will do for you, so yeah, no surprise there. Both of them knew what they wanted to do going into this team preview immediately. Something to talk about with this, about the strategy that both of these players might have in mind for this first game. It's going to be interesting seeing as to whether we're going to play under the Psychic terrain or under the Misty terrain. I think it'll be very important for Javier to, if he wants to bring that Mandibuzz in a good position, to also bring the Tapu Fini to make sure that there's no boost of the Psychic type attacks on James's side.
But we're not seeing any terrain changes at this moment. James leading with Necrozma and Salamence, and Javier leading with that Mandibuzz and Lunala.
So the two ghost types already staring each other down, and well, we have had some interactions with the speed stats in the previous games, and I think for this encounter it's pretty safe to say that James might want to go for that Ultra Burst right away. Not really any need to stay in the Dawn Wings form with his Necrozma. With the Ultra form, it would acquire Neuroforce as an ability to make super effective hits even stronger and also gain a little bit of speed. Talking about speed, another way that James could approach this would be to try and set up Tailwind, as his opponent does not use Trick Room. Instead, he's also kind of relying on his Pokemon to be naturally faster. So if James was able to establish speed control via Tailwind, then he could start to maybe do a lot of damage to that Lunala the following turn.
Mega Salamence, though, hitting the field, so it's not going to be switching out. Maybe we will see a Tailwind turn this time, but James also going for the Ultra Burst onto the Necrozma. This is a great setup here for James to dish out some good damage.
Yeah, definitely. Changing the farms there on both of his Pokemon, just making them a little bit stronger. But we do not see any protects. Instead, it's just going to be a Moonguy's Beam by that Lunala that we have seen is holding a Choice Scarf, and therefore outspeeding Pokemon it usually wouldn't.
Yeah, it's actually going to be outspeeding that Salamence there, dishing over half damage to it. But now it's time for James's Necrozma to see if he can get some revenge here. Lunala taking about 75%. That's so much. And Salamence getting up that Tailwind.
Yeah, now let's see what Mandibuzz does if it decides to go for one of those foul plays that we've seen. But nope, it's also going to be the Tailwind. So doesn't really matter for this match, as with the match Tailwind, the regular speed applies. So the same speed order that we have seen this turn will play out in the following turn. Lunala, thanks to that Choice Scarf, being the fastest Pokemon on the field, was really threatening a lot of damage, maybe the KO on Necrozma, but James just left it there unprotected, predicting that Javier would target down that Salamence, and once again, no protect, and calling out the move once again. Nicely done there by James.
Really nicely done. Javier is going to aim that Moonguy's Beam once again into Salamence to see if he can pick up the knockout, but it's actually going to be James taking an advantage in this first game by knocking out Javier's Lunala.
However, now the Mandibuzz gets a chance to use Foul Play and do a lot of damage to Necrozma. However, it's hanging in there, and I think these first two turns are probably going a little bit into James's favor. He was able to call out the move of that Lunala twice. Essentially also in the first turn, he did not protect his Necrozma. And so now he has the Pokemon advantage. The speed advantage with Tailwind, it's been matched. So James's Pokemon are now naturally faster after eliminating that Choice Scarf Lunala. So I think he's in a good position to do a lot of damage this following turn.
Do you feel like then he's going to keep both the Salamence and the Necrozma in, because both of them are really in striking range of getting knocked out here? Yeah.
Now, Tapu Fini is going for a Protect, a very good move, I think, on Javier's end, as, we are seeing a light that burns the sky will be coming out from the Necrozma. And the one thing that Javier has going for him in this situation is that Mandibuzz. So we were saying before how Ultra Necrozma doesn't really have a great way to hit it at all. Its only move that does any damage is that Moonguy's Beam. So Mandibuzz there only has to worry about that Mega Salamence hitting it with, for example, a Double Edge. But with all the bulk that Mandibus has, it should be able to take that attack relatively well and then can strike back with maybe another foul play. So nicely done there by Javier, identifying that his Mandibus wasn't under any pressure by that Ultra Necrozma at all. Instead, he's protecting his Tapu Fini from any damage, while a Light That Burns the Sky still would do a little bit, but it's not in Psychic terrain, but in Mystic terrain, so Tapu Fini should be fine here.
Yeah.
And then the Mandibus can maybe go for a knockout this turn.
Well, the Light That Burns the Sky isn't as effective as we normally get a chance to see it, but the Hyper Voice coming out from Salamence just hoping to do a bit of chip damage to both of these Pokemon. We're not going to actually see a single targeted attack at that Mandibuzz just yet. Foul play now, striking back for Javier's Mandibuzz, and it is going to be so close to getting the knockout, but Salamence hangs on.
Yeah, that is really important here, as Salamence now gets the chance to go for another double edge, and something that Javier does not have on his team that a lot of players do use is a Pokemon with Intimidate. So he doesn't have a chance to intimidate the Salamence, meaning that its double edge is going to be very powerful. Of course, with a little bit of recoil damage, it might faint, but yeah, at what cost? Well, Salamence has a prime target now going after the Tapu Fini that just protected, so the chance of a consecutive protect is lowered, but looks like James is deciding that he values his Salamence a little more than doing a lot of damage, and instead is switching into his Tapu Lele.
Tapu Lele now resetting the board. We are going to replace that Misty terrain here, and Tapu Fini actually gets the double protect.
Yeah. Nicely done there by Javier, identifying that he needed to make a play this turn after failing to get the knockout on Salamence the turn before. He goes for the double protect, and with this foul play is knocking out the Ultra Necrozma. That was a big play for Javier.
That was a very, very big play, because this is going to even the Pokemon count for both of these players now, but the health pool heavily favoring Javier at this point.
Sure, at the same time though, James once again is having that speed advantage, because his Pokemon with the Choice Scarf, that Tapu Lele that we've seen so much of yesterday, is still around. It can hit that Mandibuzz with a Moonblast, which is super effective. And then also, at the moment at least, the Psychic terrain is in effect, so its Psychic type attacks would be stronger. James now also revealing his fourth and final Pokemon as that Primal Groudon. And yeah, he still has an opportunity this turn to do a lot of damage. And I think something that could happen here is Javier might have his Rayquaza in the back that would cancel out the Desolate Land ability by Groudon and would allow his Tapu Fini to go for a Water-type attack. So that is something that both James and Javier have to keep in mind and be aware of, but nope, no switches this turn.
No switches. Mandibuzz does take that Moonblast like a champ, but does get very low. Pops its Pinch Berry though, so it's going to regain a lot of the health that it just lost to Tapu Lele's Moonblast.
Yeah, and Groudon striking with a Precipice Blades. Does it connect? It does. So that's going to be a lot more damage on the Tapu Fini. However, it should still be able to hang in there, and is firing back with a Moonblast, presumably into the Tapu Lele.
Yeah, Tapu Lele not going to take too much from that one, but a Tailwind now coming up from Javier. Yes, we did see the Tailwinds and those first couple of turns cancel each other out, but now the speed advantage going into Javier's favor.
Yes, and James's Pokemon that would be able to match that Tailwind, the Salamence, is in the back only at 4 HP. So I doubt that Javier is going to give James another chance to set that up. So James really has to play a slow game, trying to maybe outstall that Tailwind a little bit. And now Javier, once again, has the chance to, if he has that Rayquaza in the back, he could go for the Hydro Vortex that we've seen yesterday with his Tapu Fini. That would still hit even through a Protect. And, well, the only Pokemon that James could switch in would be that Mega Salamence, and that is also going to faint from a Z move. So a big turn here once again, but Javier deciding that he does not want to switch. Or maybe he doesn't have the Rayquaza in this matchup.
It's possible he doesn't, but the Protect is going to eat up at least one of those moves. A Fire Punch, though, into the Mandibuzz will, actually burn it.
Wow, and Mandibuzz didn't get to move, even though it is under Tailwind. Yep, revealing it is going for a Whirlwind. Okay, forcing the Tapu Lele off James out, and instead the Salamence is going to replace it.
That's a very interesting move here by Javier. Talk us through Javier's thought process of why he would want to go for the Whirlwind.
So Javier was already establishing that presence on the board. He had that speed advantage. Now he has put himself in a position where, once again, now that the Tapu Lele, which would naturally be faster than the Mandibuzz, even under Tailwind potentially, maybe Javier knows about that, that Tapu Lele was still threatening a knockout on Tapu Fini. And if Javier loses one more Pokemon, he would be down to his last 2. So maybe he wanted to reset the board, bring in that Salamence that is already at such low HP that now he can try and attempt to go for a big knockout this turn.
Well, this is where we get a chance to see that 4th and final Pokemon. It is going to be that Rayquaza. So I'm actually thinking that Javier was looking to set up this opportunity here where you have the Rayquaza that kind of gets a chance to switch in for free while the Salamence needs to go for a bit of a defensive play. James opting to protect that Salamence and actually going for a double protector with the Groudon, just trying to play it safe, will eat up that foul play.
Oh, and with that burn that we saw before from Fire Punch, Mandibuzz, it actually hangs
hangs
in there. Wow. So this is a prime opportunity for Javier to go for one of the moves that he's shown before in his top 4 set. His Rayquaza is actually carrying Surf. Now, usually that's something that you use in the game to, of course, surf around a little bit, but Javier identifying its competitive use, Surf, a move that can be used in Rayquaza to knock out a Primal Groudon even at full health, because Rayquaza, with the Airlock ability, cancelling out Desolate Land, is able to use Water-type attacks. And now, in this particular situation, Surf would also get the knockout on the Salamence, as it is so low already. So Javier probably fine losing the Mandibuzz this turn, and now after switching out the Tapu Fini, he gets to reset the Misty Terrain in the previous turn. Or, okay, he decides to do it this turn.
Just going to go ahead and take the advantage now, maybe waiting for Mandibuzz to make another appearance when Tapu Lele comes back here for James. So we are going to see a Misty Surge back onto the battlefield, and another rotation here by James. Wants to protect that Salamence that got whirlwinded out just moments before, and the Tapu Lele coming back to reset the terrain once again.
So now does Groudon try and go for another protect? First of all, though, we are seeing the Mega Evolution to come out from Javier, and yeah, it's gotta be the Surf, right?
Has to be. I feel like this is where Javier needs to make a big move, because this might be the last couple of turns of this game 1.
So, Delta Stream now taking place. We both have the terrain and the weather. It is the Surf coming out. Mega Rayquaza surfing away. Of course, Javier hoping that his Tapu Fini will make it through the turn, but he knew about that damage. And yes, it is a clean knockout on the Primal Groudon on James' side. And James down to his very last 2 Pokemon. However, the Tailwind is now over.
That's really important to note here, because now there really isn't a competitive advantage or a speed advantage for either of these players, and that might play a role in this last couple of turns here where Salamence is at low HP and wants to get off one last big move against Javier's Pokemon.
Certainly. So Javier now down against 2 Pokemon that are slower as his Pokemon at the moment. However, both of them are at pretty low health. Mega Rayquaza Pokemon often carrying extreme speed, which is an increased priority move, and is able to hit that Salamence because it's flying type. So usually under Psychic Terrain, no priority moves allowed, but hold that thought. Dazzling Gleam doing a lot of damage to both of Javier's Pokemon, knocking out Tapu Fini and bringing Mega Rayquaza dangerously low. Double Edge is coming out, and that's going to be the end of Mega Rayquaza. Wow, just like that. Very big play by James. He did not protect his Salamence. Instead, he went for just 2 attacking moves, and I don't think Javier expected that. Salamence going down, and all of a sudden, it looks like James has found a way back into this game and is now only down against that Mandibuzz. Which,
even if Mandibuzz gets a chance to move first before this Tapu Lele, which it won't because of that Choice Scarf there. You will end up losing your Mandibuzz to that burn, but that's it. That last Dazzling Gleam there going to be enough to knock out the Mandibuzz, and James taking game 1.
Wow, yeah, what an uphill battle he had to fight there after Javier was able to establish speed control with his second Tailwind. But James kept his head calm even when the Surf was knocking out his Primal Groudon. He knew that at some point, Tailwind is going to run out, and he will have the faster Pokemon with the Choice Scarf Tapu Lele and his Mega Salamence that he kept around for such a long time. Yeah, I was suggesting that at that point, at the very beginning of the battle, maybe he could just go for a double edge to do a lot of damage, but James knew that he needed that for the end game, so preserving that very, very cleverly. And yeah, that's going to give him the 1-0 lead going into the second game, and Javier might have to come up with a different plan.
This is a really good spot for James to be in as well, because this matchup, when you look at it on paper, is quite unfavorable for James. There's just too many powerhouses on Javier's side that really affect how James can play the way that he kind of wants to with this team composition.
Yep.
And this game 1 gives him a bit of breathing room here moving into game 2.
Certainly, with that choice card for Lunala especially being such a big threat, James really had to take some risks there. As we saw in the first game, the first 2 turns, really he had to call where was that Moongeist Beam going to go, but he called it correctly twice, and I think, yeah, that was really the groundwork for his success in this first game.
That's kind of what you have to do, though, and you can see that from even some of the sets we watched a bit earlier for juniors and seniors, that those protects can really mess up your opponent's game plan if you read them correctly or if you don't read them correctly.
Yeah, that's why Protect, of course, is the most important move that we see in these double battle scenarios. And really, using Protect to your advantage in the right situation can really swing a game around. And yeah, that's kind of what happened in this game, of course. It wasn't quite over after the first couple of turns. And Javier was really playing super well, got back in the game, but then eventually James came out on top. So going into game 2, let's see if these players switch up their strategy at all. But I think for both of them, yeah, actually we're seeing the exact same leads once again. And I think that makes some sense. Both of them had fighting chances. James, of course, winning that game, is saying, okay, I'm going to use the Mega Salamence and that Ultra Necrozma lead once again. And Javier on the other side still has that Mandibuzz. It did a good job in the first game, but wasn't just able to quite close it out.
They might have to both adjust how they open up these first couple of turns, though, because we did see James get pretty aggressive in that first turn 1 again. And Javier as well, going for a very offensive style of play, but they might both be a little bit skeptical about what their opponent's going to do here and what they can do to counter that.
Yeah, you have to wonder whether Javier once again wants to go for a a Moongeist Beam into that Mega Salamence, or if he decides to target down that Necrozma this time around. Another thing that he could do is not set up the Tailwind immediately, because we have already seen how his Mandibuzz is able to take any combination of attacks of James's Pokemon. So maybe you might want to wait a little bit and set up the Tailwind later. However, as he wants to keep his advantage in terms of speed with his choice card for Lunala, also makes a lot of sense to just go for the Tailwind right away.
Yeah, well, I mean, you're already going to see, oh, a Moongeist Beam, though, into the Necrozma. It holds on with 13 hit points.
Just
that's going
barely.
to... Yeah, that's not very much that you can really hold on with, but it is enough to give a chance to fire back here. Lunala taking that attack a little bit better, but a Tailwind setup here from James. It's going to come down to what that Mandibuzz decides to do.
And it is going to match that Tailwind, just like in the first game. So it looks like James didn't take a huge risk here, seeing as he knew his Necrozma was able to take that attack. Now, striking back with that Moongeist Beam, and Lunala, they are now at similar health once again. So James now would have the opportunity to go for a knockout on that Lunala once again. This time around, he could say protect his Necrozma, as that is what we're seeing, and then target down the Lunala slot with his Mega Salamence.
Mega Salamence could even go for a bit of a widespread move here, but I don't think that's going to be enough to get the knockout here. But Javier, reading that Protect super well, is going to go for the Moongeist Beam once again, but this time into the Salamence slot here, doing about half damage, but a double edge to fire back into the Lunala. That's going to be enough to pick up the knockout.
Yeah, making sure that that Pokemon that gave him so much trouble in the first couple of turns in both games is being knocked out, and Foul Play goes into the Protect. So yeah, the crowd here probably would have liked local hero Javier to land that Foul Play into the Salamence, but nicely done on James's end, protecting his Ultra Necrozma. And once again, we end up in a very similar situation. Now, the moves have been switched. Moongeist Beam went into that Ultra Necrozma this time around, but once again, Tailwind is matched, and Javier brings in his Tapu Fini.
Tapu Fini is going to be a bit of a struggle, I think, for James to deal with, particularly when both his Pokemon on the field are so low. Sees that and is going to rotate out that Necrozma, bringing in the Tapu Lele, which will reset the battlefield once again.
So James was thinking that Javier is going to protect his Tapu Fini this term because of how strong that light that burns the sky would have been. So instead of trying to go for that Z move and probably being knocked out by Mandibuzz, he will swap in his Tapu Lele, reset the Psychic Terrain, and then also keep his Necrozma around. But Javier goes on the offensive, no Protect, instead Moonblast, knocking out the Mega Salamence, and a Foul Play will come out into the Tapu Lele.
Tapu Lele takes that one pretty well, but Mandibuzz actually took a significant amount of damage there from Salamence before and ended up going down. Now Necrozma, coming back on the field, is going to have the battlefield advantage if it decides to go for that Z move or some other type of psychic move.
Yeah, so now this time around, I think Moonblast from Tapu Lele on James' side would be enough to knock out Mandibuzz. And Javier, having already lost Lunala, only has one more Pokemon in the back, and if it is that Mega Rayquaza that we saw in the previous game, he doesn't really have a good switch into that Fairy-type attack.
Not too much there, but it is going to be the Rayquaza coming in for the Tapu Fini here. What does James decide to do, though? That's really the big question here. Tapu Lele going for that Moonblast is going to target down that Mandibuzz.
He can do a lot of damage this turn. Mandibuzz is knocked out, and if Ultra Necrozma goes for a light that burns the sky. Okay, it's just the Photon Geyser, but in Psychic Terrain, that is going to do a ton of damage.
Wow!
Bringing Rayquaza all the way down to its Focus Sash, only remaining with just 1 HP left. Tailwind petering out, doesn't really matter too much as both of them have set it up, but now Javier already down to his final 2 Pokemon.
Final 2 Pokemon, Rayquaza needs to get something done here, and Tapu Fini is still sitting at full health, but against Necrozma that has been doing so much damage here, at least Javier has the battlefield advantage right now from resetting the terrain.
Yep, if James really wanted to, he could switch out his Tapu Lele. However, I think that the chance of seeing a Water-type attack coming out from that Tapu Fini are pretty high. So he would be advised to still be very careful. I'm not quite sure if a combination of Moonblast and Light That Burns the Sky would knock out the Tapu Fini, but that is something he could link into. Javi just protecting his Rayquaza that is left at 1 HP. Moonblast coming out will go into the Tapu Fini, and if that Ultra Necrozma decided to go for the Z move, I think James is in a fantastic spot to take home this tournament.
Well, guess what it is? It's going to be that Z move here from James. What did he decide to target, though, with that light that burns the sky? Is it going to be that Rayquaza that Javier just protected, or is it going to be that Tapu Fini left out in the open?
I think either way, that's going to do a lot of damage. Of course, it would be enough to knock out Rayquaza through the Protect because it's at such low health. And well, I think that's what he might want to do. Maybe he's not quite sure whether Tapu Fini could hang on there. And if he knocks out that Mega Rayquaza, all his opponent has left would be that Tapu Fini. And yep, that is exactly what he decided to do. Very nice move, hitting through the Protect, big energy ball. And that is putting James in a fantastic position. Now Javier's Tapu Fini left to move. Even if he got a double knockout this turn, I have a feeling that James still has that Primal Groudon waiting in the back.
I think so, and Rayquaza that was threatening that Surf that last time in the muddy water from that Tapu Fini. It was great that James decided to go on the offensive here, choosing to keep that 4th and final Pokemon a secret. Unfortunately, Necrozma, after using that Z move, will get knocked out to that muddy water.
So we're also seeing an accuracy drop on Tapu Lele, so it might not hit its moves, but Groudon hitting the field with that Primal Reversion and Desolate Land. There's not really much Tapu Fini can do now that Rayquaza went down, and all that James really needs to do is hit his moves.
Gotta hit his moves now. Muddy Water not going to be activated now with that Desolate Land that's on the field. So there's not too much else that Tapu Fini really packs in its arsenal in order to deal with this threat that is the Groudon sitting on board here. We might be moments away from crowning our next Latin American international champion.
Yeah, not so fast though, as Moonblast does miss, and James, though, knowing that he doesn't need to rely on Precipice Blades, is just going for a Fire Punch in the sun. That'll do a good chunk of damage, and Tapu Fini, all it is left to do is just fire off some Moonblasts, but yeah, as you were saying, don't think it's gonna be enough, and it looks like it's going to be James Baek from the United States that will crown himself, or will be crowned here, the 2020 Latin America International Champion.
Congratulations, James. Congratulations, both players, for making it to the grand finals here. I think we all feel for Javier, knowing how far they made it in this tournament, but still coming into those top 2 positions will net you a bunch of championship points towards your Worlds invite.
Yeah, incredible play by both players. Javier over the entire course of this tournament with his unusual choice of Pokemon, with the Togedemaru, the Mandibuzz, and then the Choice Scarf Lunala, really putting on a great show. And James Baek Another big tournament win for him, and it's the first time he has won it on the international stage. Congratulations to James Baek.